Hey y'all, welcome back to another Real Housewives of Atlanta review, season 16, episode 11. And y'all know how I do. Let's get right into it. Okay, so we start off with Angela and Charles. They out and about having a little bite to eat. And I have my notes here, y'all, like always. So if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at. So they have a little bite to eat or whatever. And they start having a little back and forth about a name of it or who coaches a certain team, one of the basketball teams that was having a game or whatever the case. So it was a cute little back and forth between them two. And Angela was like, that's our love language. Basically going back and forth. And Charles is like, no, it ain't. I love Charles, y'all. I really do. He is just such like a grumpy old man. Even though he's not technically grumpy, at least not on camera, but he just gives off a grumpy old man. Like, just don't want to be bothered. Look, let me just grow old gracefully and peacefully, y'all, and don't nobody get on my damn nerve. That's exactly what Charles be giving. But anyway, they had a little, like I said, playful back and forth about, you know, Charles is one of the teams that Charles's friend coaches or whatever. So then Angela had asked Charles for a kiss. And he complaining, what you need a kiss for? What you need a kiss for? Like, you know, he was complaining about giving that lady a kiss. So much so to the producer even asked him, like, do you love Angela? To y'all, he said, huh? So right now we waiting for Charles's answer, child. Okay, because he ain't never answered the question. The most he said was, huh? And here go Angela. Well, she don't want the people to think that you don't love it. And the producer was like, no, it's not that, you know. Charles is something else, y'all. But anyway, so then they move on. Angela was just telling Charles that, you know, she wanted to have a sit down with her sister or have a talk with her sister in regards to the incident that happened with her sister cursing everybody out, including Angela's daughter, child, down to their house when Amari is her name, I think, her oldest daughter. When Amari was down there, you know, getting flipped with the lip, and her aunt checked her, because that's what I got out of it, okay? Out of Amari's side of the story, I got that she was being grown, meaning like she was being disrespectful because she know who her mother is, and her mother's the one who bought the house, her mother's the one who bought the car, and she just was throwing around her entitled privilege, and her aunt shut it down. That is my take on it. But anyway, so Angela was basically saying that her and her sister have been avoiding each other since then, you know. They haven't spoken, you know, they haven't had any interactions, they haven't even talked about the situation. So Angela was just telling Charles, you know, that's something that she wants to do because she feels like her buying them a house, them meaning her mom and her sister, her buying them a home and, you know, just trying to help them get on their feet, you know, with businesses and finances and stuff like that. She feels like she feels underappreciated. She doesn't feel like, you know, her sister in that moment, she doesn't feel like her sister, you know, appreciated the things that she was trying to do for her, you know, and trying to help her and stuff like that. So Charles was just, you know, basically telling her, you know, he could relate with his own sisters because, you know, he had similar situations where he's taking care of his sister, you know, and, you know, I guess something or another happened. He didn't really get into detail. He just basically was like, you know, I know the feeling. And Angela asked him, well, how do you deal with that? And that's when Charles was like, you know, he keeps his distance for the most part. He said he got his peace because he lived far away from them. And I was like, I know that's right, Charles. I absolutely know that's right, because sometimes distance is the best option when it comes to family. So, you know, he just was like, you know, and also you got to cut them off at some point, because if you keep giving and giving, it's just going to get worse, you know. So yeah, that was Charles. That's how he said he handles it, child. Like, in other words, I don't. And then he said his family was Tyler Perry before it was a Tyler Perry. So, but you know, that's how it is sometimes in certain families, you know. Sometimes, you know, you are feeling like you're helping them out, or, you know, you're doing this and that for them, and they're giving you their ass to kiss, you know. And, you know, but Angela, you know, she prides herself on, you know, taking care of her family, especially her mother, you know, that she feels like that is something that she always wanted to do for her mother. And we see her talk a little bit more about that later on in the episode. So then we move on to Cynthia meeting up with Shamea. They're at a restaurant, and, you know, Shamea meets with Cynthia to talk about, you know, what all happened the day before at Portia's Pampered by Portia event, where, you know, kind of all hell broke loose a little bit between Shamea and Portia, you know, discussing and trying to, like, you know, talk about their issues that they've been having in their friendship or whatever amongst the group. So Shamea comes in and she whips out her phone. Child, one thing Shamea gonna do is read a text out loud, honey. But she read a text that she said she had sent to her mother the day before, right before she went into Portia's event. Or before she arrived to Portia's event, she had texted her mother and said to her mother, like, you know, she kind of feels sad and stuff, and she just doesn't know why. So then her mother said, you know, well, I'll pray for you, you know. And so Shamea got emotional in that moment, well, when she was talking to Cynthia. And Cynthia, I don't know, you know, why Cynthia is taking on this role now on the show, to where she's like, I don't know, it's just weird, because she's like the fixer anymore. Like, it's just weird though, because I'm just like, I don't want to see Cynthia be a fixer. Like, I need you to be, you know, I don't know what I'm trying to say right now, but I don't like this version of Cynthia on the show. It's not that I don't like Cynthia, of course I love Cynthia down, like, you know, but I don't like this role that she's taken on of like being, because she is the oldest one on the cast right now. I guess she feels like she has to be that motherly, nurturing, you know, person to the girls. But baby, they right behind you. These ladies are in their 40s, some of them in their late 40s. So, well, mid to late 40s, you know, because I still think Angela is older than 43. But the lady say she 43, she 43. But anyway, I just feel like, you know, like Cynthia sometimes, you know, like, you don't always gotta be, you know, the voice of reason all the time. And I'm not saying I want to see her argue and, you know, fighting with the girls, but I'm just not used to this Cynthia. Put it like that. I'm used to the other Cynthia, even though she was always classy and kept it cute, but she just wasn't walking around trying to fix everybody in their situation. Portia has been talking about their friendship to everybody else, and she can't really understand why Portia wasn't coming to her with the issues or whatever the case may be. Like, why did I have to hear it from other people? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Also, Shamea was just basically saying, like, what she did, what the things that she told the girls, because Shamea, you know, talked to them too. She made it seem like she was talking to them in response to, you know, she wasn't just going around, you know, talking to them about, you know, the issues that her and Portia was having or whatever. She was basically responding to what was being told to her. So when she responded to it, she's basically said that, you know, the way the message got back to Portia, or messages got back to Portia, was not the way she relayed them. And I'm just like, well, Shamea, you kind of did the same thing. You know, you kind of did the same thing when you went to carry your bone. And, you know, you made it seem like, for instance, when you carried your bone back from Drew, saying that, you know, if, you know, Dennis's royalties will have Pilar's college paid off, you sent it back to Portia as if Drew was trying to be shady, and then as if Drew was talking about PJ. So, you know, but anyway, Cynthia basically said, you know, how she could relate a little bit, because, you know, she kind of felt those same feelings when she was on the show with her and Nene, you know, being among somebody that she felt like was her real good friend. They were best friends. They're on the phone all the time. And then when they get on around the other people, other girls in the cast, you know, Nene switched up, you know. And so Cynthia basically was just saying, like, you know, she kind of understands what Shamea was feeling, and, you know, what she was going through or whatever. So Shamea talked about how her mother and Portia's mother, Miss Diane, were two peas in a pot back in the day. Now, I knew they was cool, but I thought they got cool through Portia and Shamea being friends back when they was younger. But no, it's actually the other way around. I didn't know that. I didn't know that Portia's mother and Shamea's mom were so quote-unquote besties. Shamea did say at least her mother looked at Miss Diane, who was Portia's mother, as her best friend back then, you know. So, and that they had, you know, that's where she met Miss Diane when she was in elementary school. That's what Shamea was saying. She met Miss Diane when she was in elementary school. And again, their parents were friends before they were friends, you know. So, and that something, she didn't say this, but of course, through her talking through it a little bit more, what I got out of it is that there was some type of falling out that happened between the parents, and she don't want to talk about it because the producer did ask her, well, what happened? She's like, child, I ain't even going there. She ain't want to talk about it. So, child, it probably has something to do with a man. It probably has something to do with a man, and we can guess, take a wild guess if that is the case, because I don't know what happened, but this is just me insinuating and assuming. But we don't know what happened, but I'm pretty sure it was over some guy and I'm pretty sure it was one of the other took somebody and or did, you know, went behind the other one back when it came to a man child, and I can almost guess which one it was. Okay, but yeah, so Shamea kind of left it at that. But she said that their friendship had been rocky ever since, you know, and Shamea, like I said, didn't want to specify what happened between, you know, her mother and Portia's mother as to why their relationship is still rocky. So I guess they still speak, but it's rocky. So and then Cynthia lends her, you know, words of encouragement to Shamea, trying to make Shamea feel better. Shamea was just basically saying too that it's hard to kind of, you know, mend things with Portia when Portia's mother's out here talking shit about her still, you know, saying things like, oh, the apple don't fall far from the tree, talking about Shamea and her mama, saying the apple don't fall far from the tree, telling Portia don't trust Shamea and stuff like that. So Shamea was just saying, like, it's kind of hard to kind of, you know, rebuild or mend a friendship when your mother feel the way she do about me. So, and telling Portia to be careful. All the things that somebody else need to be telling their daughter about Portia. Miss Diane got nerve, honey. She got the audacity or whatever. So anyway, you know, they kind of wrap it up from that or whatever. And so then we have Kelly chat. We got Kelly at her restaurant. She's in there, you know, checking on things, making sure things is, because she's still trying to open up that Sandy Springs location. So she's at Nana's kitchen, you know, trying to, you know, just, it seemed like she was just checking on things or whatever. She had her chef there. He was cooking it up in there. And then we see Britt and Mike. They're getting ready for a wedding. And then Shamea is in studio with her sisters and her friend. And she kind of talking to them too about, you know, the Portia and her situation and saying like, you know, it shouldn't be this hard. And her friend Kelly said, you know, it really shouldn't be this hard. Okay. And Shamea feels like she's the only one working on it or whatever. So that was that. So then we have Cynthia, Portia, and Angela. They go bowling, and the ladies have a sit down. One of them asked Portia, how was PJ doing? So Portia was basically saying that PJ is, you know, she's very, very sensitive, and that she's still asking for her papa, which is Simon Child. Portia said at first she thought PJ was just sad because of, you know, her going through the divorce with Simon, but she said now she's thinking that it's because she's out of the house a lot more. Portia said she's out of the house a lot more. She's not working from home anymore, and that she thinks that's what's been affecting PJ as well lately. And like I said, she said PJ is still asking for Simon or whatever, asking for her papa. And I'm just like, don't she got a father? Like do she ask for Dennis? Even though I know Dennis is there, you know, I know she probably don't have to ask for Dennis, but why is she asking for her papa when her papa is fucking Dennis? Like, I don't like that ish, y'all. I'm sorry. I curse and I don't mean to curse. But at the end of the day, I do not like when women meet men, okay, and they just meeting the men and they start dating the men, and, you know, they decide to move off fast with this man, and they got their kids calling this man their dad or papa or dad, or, you know, like, and they don't even know this man. Like, I cannot stand women who do that. Like, don't do that to your kids. It is okay for that lady, for PJ to have called Simon Mr. Simon. Okay, it's okay. Like, he's not her papa, even though he is old enough to be her grandfather, very much so. But he's not her papa. Her papa is Dennis's father, or, you know, somebody of that age group, and somebody that's actually her bloodline. Like, don't be having your kids calling these men their dads and shit, and they don't even know them like that. Y'all haven't even been together to have that level of, you know, having your kids call him anything other than his name with the Mr. in front of it. Like, I don't like that. But anyway, so Portia, of course, you know, got a little bit sad and stuff like that. So she said Simon wakes up every day, you know, trying to ruin her life every day, you know, thinking of a new way to ruin her life. But Portia, you did that all on your own. You ruined your own life because you shouldn't have did what you did to get with Simon, and now you get what you get. We don't feel sorry. Moving on from that or whatever. Again, here's Cynthia lending her words of encouragement. Cynthia is just like, she killing me this season, child. And Portia says she genuinely wanted to, you know, have her Pampered by Portia event to be a celebration of peace, you know, and it didn't turn out that way between her and Shamea, of course. And that she said that it somehow turned into her being a bad friend. And Portia knows she wasn't being a good friend to Shamea, and haven't been for a long time now. We're just now seeing it, and people are just now calling her out on it, and she don't like it. That's all it is. But Portia knows she's not being a good friend to Shamea, and she keeps using this divorce situation as an excuse as to why she is the way she is. What was it before the divorce, girl? What was your excuse then, before Simon came in the picture? You were still a shitty friend to Shamea. Again, it's now that we're all getting to see it in 4K now, and you don't like that. So anyway, moving on. Drew is on the way back home from her meeting with her returning Tanya. They called an emergency meeting, child, because Ralph is down there to the courthouse trying to claim ownership of Drew's LLC Drew Sedora's LLC that she started way back in 05. He wants 40% of that. So because of that, they started a new LLC, or they opened up a new one, and now he's coming after that one as well. So Drew was on FaceTime with her mom on the ride home, you know, telling her mom about what all was going on. Of course, she was emotional, you know, and she also told her mother how she went home. I don't recall if it was the night before or whatever, but she had went home, and it was about 1 a.m. in the morning, and she showed a little video of her trying to get in her house with the code, the security code, and the security code didn't work. Ralph went ahead and changed the code, child, on her, and she couldn't get in. So she wound up having to go to a hotel. So I guess at that time, you know, her and Ralph spoke to each other, so she wound up making her way back to the house from the hotel, just to see him walking in the house through the basement where he lives. So he's able to have full access to his entrance to the house, and then he comes upstairs to open a door for her. And I'm just, y'all, I just can't get with it. Like, there is just no freaking way. There is no way my husband or ex-husband or whoever the fuck is gonna have me not being able to get into my own home. Are you dead ass? Baby, I would have broke that entire door down. Do you hear me? I'm not playing. Like, ain't no way this is gonna have I don't even know how he has the authority to do that. Like, it's both of their homes, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I don't know who name is on the house, if it's just Ralph's name on the house solely, or if Drew is him and Drew's name on the house together, which I'm assuming it is, but the actions is given otherwise. It's given because she act like she don't have no say-so over ish like this, and I don't understand. But guess what? Even if my name ain't on the house, baby, I've been in that house since we got it. This my house, okay? And you not never gonna lock me out of my house. I will rip that whole fucking security code shit off the door. Yes, okay? Don't play. Like, do not play with me. Like, what? And then you got a nerve to come from downstairs to open the door? Drew is good, child, and I get it. You know, Drew ain't me, so I get it. You know, she trying to keep it cordial. You know, they got kids and stuff. She not trying to go there with Ralph, but Ralph is really making it hard. So like I said, you know, she's on the phone with her mom, and she's telling her mom, you know, all about it or whatever the case. So, and Drew, I agree with Drew's mother when she said, you know, Ralph is doing all of this, and he's not realizing that it's affecting the kids, because the more you try to make hardship for their mother, you know, the worse it's going to be for them. You know, they need two whole put together parents, okay? They don't need a broke down mother because you breaking her down every chance you get. And I don't understand, why is he doing that? Like, if I'm not mistaken, even though he claims he's the one who called on the divorce because he claimed Drew slept with Ty or whatever the case, I don't believe that either. But in any case, that's what he claimed. He's the one who called for the divorce. But I feel like he called for the divorce because he just wanted to be single and free to do what he been doing while he was married. That's it, and that's all. And I feel like he knew he had the upper hand over her, because even Drew admitted that he makes a lot of money. He does very well for himself. He's pretty much the breadwinner. So, you know, I feel like, you know, he holds that over Drew's head, and that's why he does her the way he does her. He feels like he has her stuck, and she can't do anything to him or without him, and I don't like that. Like, that's why you just got to be careful, honey. And when he stated on last episode how fast they moved, you know, he's right. They didn't really get a chance to know each other, but at the end of the day, you proposed to her, you laid up with her, and y'all together got pregnant. Okay, so miss me with all that you moved too fast, because whatever pace you moved at, it was because you wanted to move that way, period. So now that you here, don't blame it on that, okay? So anyway, so now we move on to Angela again. Angela's mother's over to visit, and you know, she told Charles before that. She wanted to have a sit down with her sister, but she also did mention her mom too. So now they're at her house, and they are sitting down talking, and her mother, well, Angela tells her mother that, her mother tells her that, they got their keys to their new home. So Angela's acting like she don't know what home her mother's talking about. Girl, I know your mother ain't buying a new house or moving into a new house, and Jan, you didn't know about it, because the house that they're living in is the house that Angela bought for her to begin with. So I'm pretty sure she knew her mother was getting a new house and moving out the old one. So, but like I say, Angela's sitting there acting like she don't really know, what all her mother's talking about, when she's like, what house or whatever. So her mother told her, we moving out, I don't want to, she didn't use the word burden, I'm using the word burden, but I was like, I don't want to pretty much burden you, you got a lot going on or whatever. So Angela, tells her she really feels bad because she takes pride in wanting to take care of her mother, and it's hurting her feelings that she can no longer do that because her mother is moving on and moving out the house. I don't understand that, why Angela is so hurt behind it, because if your mother want to move out the house, cool. But why are you sad about that? The house is still there. Let Amari ass stay in there with her and her partner. I don't know if they're still married or what. That's why I'm gonna just say her partner. But let Amari have the house to herself. She was over there more than anybody anyway with them. So if your mother and your sister want to move out, I don't understand why you hurt. Like, you could still take care of your mother, because I'm pretty sure you're gonna be paying for the bills in that house too. So I don't understand, but whatever. Angela says she was, she felt away because all she ever wanted to do was take care of her mother, and it's painful because she can no longer do that, or she no longer has to do that, or whatever. You're gonna still do it, Angela. It's okay. They're still gonna have bills for you to pay. Okay. Then Angela tells her mother that she needs her to stand up, and have her back. So her mother was like, I did stand up for you when it came to Charles some time ago, 3 years ago. That's when Angela mentioned a few episodes ago, like, her mother and Charles had like a falling out over cleaning. So that's what her mother was talking about. Like, Charles had said to her mother, your daughter need to clean up. So she spazzed on him, she's like, because he was talking about my child or whatever. So they laughed it off. Her mother was like, I still love Charles. Charles is my son in love, I'm going to write him a letter, child. I'm going to write him a letter. So, and she said she'll do it again or whatever. So, but they hadn't spoken like that for 3 years since then. So, I don't know. But she said she gonna write him a letter and stuff. And she also joked about, Charles being close to her age, child. He being in the same age group as her mama, child. So then we see Kelly giving Chloe some driving lessons. Chloe is Kelly's eldest daughter, child. I don't have the patience. Me personally, now don't get me wrong, I did take my son out on his first driving lessons, but my son is he's pretty laid back. He's not, he's laid back. You can teach somebody like him how to drive. But Miss Chloe, no, she would have had to get some a real driving instructor. And they in that big ass Cadillac at that, which is cool. That's a good thing to learn how to drive in. And she seemed to have been doing pretty well. So I'm not going to say that, but you could tell that Chloe, she just one of those where she just feel like, I got this. I don't need you to tell me how to do this. And she was scaring the shit out of Kelly. She scared me too, child, when she got close to that damn work truck equipment thing on the side. But Kelly in there in the car yelling at her and stuff. Telling her to slow down, or not slow down, but telling her to, watch out. Don't you see that thing there? So they had a cute little back and forth in there, because Chloe was telling her mama, you are so dramatic. So then they talk about, the car that Chloe wants. Chloe told Kelly that she wants a BMW. So Kelly was like, well, I'll buy you the car, but you gonna take care of it. Meaning your money gonna take care of the rest. Like, I'll purchase the car, but anything else that got to do with that car is gonna be on you. And Chloe agrees. He was like, well, I'm gonna be working at the restaurant, so, I'm gonna get my little coin. I'll be good. But she really wants her BMW. Or whatever. But Kelly, starts telling us about the Sandy Springs location. Like I said, she's really working hard to get that location open, because it seems like it's taking a long time, because it's always something. Okay, but she's still really adamant and working on that. So she wants to get that location up and running. So then we're back at Drew's house. She's home with her mom. Her mom came and visited her. And, you know, they're sitting down having a little drink, you know, having a little mom-daughter moment. And then they get into talking about the divorce again. And Drew tells her mother that, you know, she feels like her and Ralph are better at co-parenting than they were when they were actual married together and being actual parents and stuff. And her mother was like, well, I'm conflicted about that because how is that so when every chance Ralph pretty much gets, you know, he's trying to destroy Drew, you know? He's trying to make financial hardship for her. He's trying to drain her. You know, he's doing everything in his power to just make sure she's unhappy. So how is that? You know, that also goes along with co-parenting. Again, you can't be a shitty person to your kid's mother and then say that, you know, and then you kind of say that you guys are doing very well as co-parents, because how is that so when you're always crying because he's always doing some shit and you always crying and getting emotional, and you know. So I don't know, I'm with Drew's mother on that. Like, I don't see, I mean, I know maybe, I don't know how it works, but according to Drew, they're better at co-parenting than they were when they were married or whatever. So she's also, I mean, Drew's mom also said that she feels like the court's decision to allow Ralph to stay in the house downstairs in the basement was a bad decision because they weren't thinking about the kids in that case. And now how she feels like Drew's kids are now out of control. You know, they don't listen to her, you know, and she's like, if it comes to a point where I can no longer, or the kids don't no longer listen to me, then there's a problem. So Drew got emotional because the things her mother was saying about her kids, you know, she felt like she didn't notice it. You know, she didn't notice that her kids were being out of control and acting out. And I believe I said this in one of the other reviews I did. I felt the same way. Like, I felt like kids are going to act out when they see that kind of stuff. They see their parents are no longer together. They're old enough. They're not stupid. Okay, they're old enough to know that mommy and daddy ain't right. You know, why is daddy? And I'm pretty sure they questioned her. Why is daddy downstairs in the basement? Or question him. You know, I want to know what she said to them, because I know those kids asked those questions when it all started happening. But Drew got emotional. Like I said, she kind of got up and left out the living room at the time, and she came back or whatever, but she was more so emotional because she said she didn't want that for her kids. She didn't want that, you know. But at the end of the day, I don't know what court or judge they got, child, because I don't know why a judge would allow that either. And it seems like the judge is always in Ralph's favor. I don't understand that. Like, I need to know more about their situation, because why is Ralph able to get everything he wants? And that's another thing I forgot to mention when Drew was coming back from the meeting with Tanya. They had that emergency meeting as well, also because she said that Ralph tried to get her attorney Tanya recused from the case. In other words, removed from the case because of him trying to gain 40 or get 40% ownership of Drew's LLCs. So and this is why I don't understand, like, why is Ralph able to do everything he wants to do and get everything he wants to get when it comes to this divorce, but Drew is like seemingly getting nothing? Do she need to find a new lawyer? Because she's even mentioned that. She's like, you know, if Ralph basically gets his way, she gonna meaning if he gets her attorney Tanya removed from the case, then that means she's gonna have to find her a new lawyer, you know. So, and I think she said that they got a next court date coming up too or whatever. So like I said, Drew said she didn't notice that her kids were different, you know, but I guess hearing it from somebody else, especially her mother, you know, it made her really sad about that. And her mother did apologize. She even got emotional too, because she's just like, I don't want this for my daughter. Like, I don't want this for Drew. I never expected this to be her life, you know. It's just sad all the way around. So then we get to the finale, y'all. We get to Shamea and Portia finally meeting up and attempting to talk out their issues with each other. So, soon as Portia sits down, child, here go her phone ringing. And who's on the line? Miss Diane on her FaceTime. So, anyway, they begin to talk about their issues that they've been having, and Shamea goes first, and she starts out apologizing per usual, you know, for not being as open about her feelings throughout the course of their friendship, whatever. So she tells Portia that she would have preferred it not to come from the group, you know, what all Portia felt, or what, you know, whatever the case, any issues Portia had with Shamea regarding their friendship, she didn't, appreciate Portia going to the group about, or speaking amongst the group about it. She felt like Portia should have came directly to her. Oh, Shamea also brought up how Portia talked over her music, and Portia talks over her, sometimes, and Portia has been putting up shady posts, about her and stuff, and how that makes her feel like she's being dismissed. She says it's very dismissive to her or whatever, and it's hurtful. Portia lets out a sigh, because Portia don't give AF, okay, about Shamea feelings. Okay, so she sits there and she lets out a breath of air, and Shamea's asking her if she's boring her, and because, like, why would you do that? Like, that's very disrespectful. Like, Shamea, she is really a loyal friend to Portia, baby, because she wouldn't get that from me. I'm sorry, she would not get that from me. But anyway, like I said, Shamea had asked Portia if she's boring her, and Portia's like, well, she feels uncomfortable. Of course you do, because you're in a hot seat. Of course you feel uncomfortable. And then Portia saying she don't understand why they're talking about things that they've already talked about in the past. And Shamea said the group brought up all the reasons why Portia wasn't a good friend to her. And then she did admit to some of those reasons. I mean, some of the things that they were saying. She agreed with it. So they had a little bit of a back and forth, sitting there at the table. And Shamea tells Portia again that she's being dismissive, because this entire time Portia was being dismissive. So, but Shamea told her again that she was being dismissive. And Shamea also brought up Miss Diane saying the things that she said about her, telling Portia that, apple don't fall far from the tree, don't trust her, and be careful, and stuff like that. And Shamea was just telling Portia, like, that's very hurtful, like, that your mother feels that way about me. And here Portia talking about, well, it wasn't me that said it, I was just telling you what my mother said. Well, why would you tell her what your mother said if your mother said some shit like that? Me personally, I wouldn't tell my best friend that that's what my mother said about her, because that's going to always be in her head. And then if we're around your mother, whatever, how am I supposed to react? Or how am my friend supposed to react around my mother, knowing that my mother feel and said what she said about her? I wouldn't have never told my best friend that. I would have kept that shit to myself. And I would have also, checked, my mother for, talking about my friend in that way. Like, we're not going to do that, Ma. She's a good friend to me. I don't got those issues with her. I trust her. I know sometimes they say my mothers know best or whatever, but in this case, they don't, because Miss Diane is still salty about whatever happened between her and Shamea's mother, and then she's taking it out on Shamea, in my opinion. That's what I believe, or whatever. So Shamea said that Portia told her that that's one of the reasons that she pulled back from her, because of what her mother was saying about her. And so, okay, Portia, you let your mother say these things about your so-called best friend who you so-called loved, and you even started acting different toward her? Like, that's crazy. So Portia denied it, though. She said it wasn't true. And Shamea told Portia that, she wants the Portia that's the off-camera Portia. She don't want this on-camera Portia, because she feels like Portia is really putting on for the cameras and doing the most. And Shamea even said that, Portia, you said that if they want that, then they're gonna have to pay you more. And I'm like, that's crazy. That's crazy. If your best friend is sitting here telling you, or told you back then, that she want things to be normal and things to be the way they are when you guys are not on camera, and you want to sit there and tell her they got to pay you more for you to act like your normal self, you be your real self, so you going to continue to be who you are to me on camera in front of all these people and us. I'm telling you, that's crazy. Portia would not be no friend of mine. Shamea is very good, but at this point, Shamea deserves everything Portia does to her at this point, because you have tried, Shamea, have tried to be that friend to Portia. She has shown Portia better than she could tell her. She has been there for Portia from what we see with our own eyes, and Portia has not reciprocated that at all. And Portia keeps playing in Shamea's face, and Shamea keeps eating that shit, because she's loved Portia. We've been friends. That may be all true, and I'm not saying it's easy to walk away, but girl, when is enough for you? When is enough for you? Like, you gonna sit there and keep whining and complaining about what Portia do to you or what she don't do, and you are fully grown 40-something-year-old woman, and you still going through this with Portia? You crazy. So at this point, you deserve it. I don't feel bad for Shamea no more. I did in the beginning, but now seeing, like I said, how Shamea just wants to continue to be this way to Portia, even though Portia continues to shit on her, then she get what she get. That's it, and that's all. And Portia was asking Portia had the audacity to ask Shamea, why is she arguing for the show? And what made it even worse is that Portia was sitting there, y'all, trying to act so calm and act like, I'm not here to argue with you. I just want peace. I'm going through a lot. I can't mentally handle this right. She was acting so cool and calm and making it seem like Shamea was the one that was being excited and aggressive. Portia is something, y'all. Woo, girl, I don't know how she do it. I don't know how Shamea do it, or how she been doing it for all these years, child. So Shamea is still trying to get her point across while trying to get Portia to take accountability for her actions and her part in the friendship. And Portia is still being dismissive. And Portia said ever since they started filming, they haven't really been, you know, having the best communication. So, you know, and that Portia says she's hurt because she needs her friend right now. And she would never do that to Shamea. Girl, bye. Okay, you've been doing it to Shamea. You still doing it to Shamea. So yeah. And Portia had a nerve to tell Shamea how it's scary what the show is doing to her. Lord. And Shamea feels like Portia was minimizing her feelings to the show. And Portia starts to act like she's about to cry, of course. Telling Shamea to just stop. You know, please, just stop. Shamea, just stop. Shamea is sitting there looking confused because she's like, what do I need to stop about? I'm just sitting here trying to express my feelings to you. Like, what did I do or say for you to tell me to stop? So then that's when Portia dismisses Shamea's feelings again. She gets up from the table. She walks in the bathroom, act like she fake crying, going there, have a little sulk to herself. And then she comes back out or whatever. And she's asking Shamea, you know, if they should take their food to go. So pretty much she's once again dismissing Shamea and her fucking feelings. And she's asking for the food to go because she wants to wrap this up. She don't want to deal with it no more. She don't want to be in a hot seat anymore. So then Shamea just basically said, you know what, I'm going to pray for us. And Portia claims she's just overwhelmed. Shamea is still trying to plead her case to Portia. Portia is still dismissing her because now she's messing with the silverware on the table, you know, while Shamea is talking to her or whatever. So anyway, they wound up ending it on a good note, child. They wound it up hugging it out, you know, and holding hands and telling one another they love each other. Portia gave Shamea a fake ass hug. You know, it's just really pitiful to see Shamea, you know, like I said, going to the lengths that she has gone to try to get Portia to be the friend to her that she always was to Portia. It's really sad because they are grown. They are fully grown. And it's like Shamea is chomping at the bit, trying to salvage this so-called friendship, you know. And she, like I said, if Shamea like it, we love it, child, because I ain't got no more for her. I don't have no more for her. But that was the end, you guys. That was the end of the show or whatever. And you know, we wait for next week's episode. I think Britt is having some event or whatever, or launching something. And then we see then we see Portia and Phaedra linking up again. And child, they got Charles out there to Britt's event. I'm assuming it's Britt's event. I don't know whose event it is yet, but I'm assuming it's Britt because she was the one standing up saying talking about what she was launching. But they got Charles down there, child, and they got the right one. So I will be tuning in as always, you guys, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace out.